Welcome everyone to another electrifying episode of Easy Adept. Today we're diving into some of the heaviest emotions known to humanity, shame, guilt, and grief, but don't worry, we're not bringing tissues, we're bringing laughter and wisdom as our ultimate weapons. Dr. David R. Hawkins, a brilliant mind who gave us the map of consciousness, shows us that these emotions are like low-frequency radio stations playing sad country songs on repeat in the background of our lives. They play even if we don't hear them consciously. No worries, in this episode, we're going to uncover those sneaky little bricks and use the power of laughter and insight to dissolve them into nothingness. Now, let me set the stage for you. Imagine you're walking around with a backpack, not just any backpack, but one stuffed with bricks labeled shame and guilt and grief. The kicker, you didn't even pack it yourself. It's like someone snuck those bricks in there while you weren't looking. Maybe it was that time you accidentally called your teacher mom in third grade, or when you didn't call your actual mom back last weekend. Whatever it is, we all carry this stuff around often without even realizing it, so buckle up, because we're about to turn that emotional baggage into a featherlight accessory. Get ready to laugh it off as we annihilate shame, guilt, and grief with the sword of wisdom and humor. Trust me, by the end of this episode, you'll walk away feeling lighter, freer, and ready to face the world with a smile that says, yeah, I've got this. Let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, gather round. Welcome to a podcast where we're about to laugh our way through the absurdity of shame, guilt, and grief. Before we dive in, let's take a moment to breathe, inhale the ridiculousness of societal expectations, and exhale the fact that none of us have our lives together. Feel that? That's the sweet, sweet relief of realizing we're all in this crazy mess together. All right, enough zen. We're here to have fun. Let's kick off this shameless journey. Shame Shredders, crashing the top 3 root causes of shame. Hey, welcome to Shame Shredders, the podcast where we take the top 3 reasons you're feeling ashamed and crush them like an old rusty can of soda. It's just me today, but don't worry, I've got enough wit and wisdom to fill the room. Let's dive in. So, what's first on our hit list? Ah yes, the infamous unmet social expectations. You know the drill. Society, or maybe just your nosy neighbor, has this invisible checklist that you're apparently supposed to follow. And if you don't, bam, shame comes knocking like a telemarketer during dinner. But here's the deal. Social expectations are kind of like those weird rules your gym teacher made up in high school. Remember when dodgeball was suddenly banned? No one really knows why these rules exist, and honestly, they don't make any sense. Who even decided that by age 30, you're supposed to have a mortgage, 2.5 kids, and a dog named Spot? Let me tell you something. Spot is overrated, and so are social expectations. The next time someone tries to make you feel bad for not ticking off those imaginary boxes, just remember that the person who wrote those rules also probably thought bell bottoms were a good idea twice. Live your life like you're the most interesting person at the party, the one who showed up without reading the dress code, because honestly, no one really cares, and if they do, they're probably just jealous they didn't think to wear flip-flops too. All right, next up on the shame train, negative self-evaluation. Ah yes, the classic. It's that nagging little voice in your head that loves to replay every awkward thing you've ever done like it's your personal blooper reel. But here's the thing. That voice is like the world's worst DJ, constantly playing the same sad song over and over again. You wouldn't let someone else stand in front of you and list all your flaws, so why let your own brain do it? The next time that inner critic starts yapping, just imagine it's a stand-up comedian who's totally bombing on stage. Give it a polite laugh, maybe a pity clap, and then mentally escort them off the stage. Listen, everyone's got a blooper reel. The difference is most people don't spend their time rewatching it in HD, so why should you? The reality is no one else is keeping track of your so-called failures, but you. And guess what? You're not even good at it. So cut yourself some slack and change the channel to something a bit more positive, preferably with a good soundtrack. And finally, we've got the big one, trauma and abuse. Now, this one's a bit heavier, but don't worry. I'm going to handle it with care and maybe even a little humor, because sometimes that's just what we need. Here's the deal with trauma. It's like getting stuck with a terrible haircut. You didn't choose it. It's not your fault, but for some reason, you're the one who has to live with it for a while. But just like with a bad haircut, with time, it grows out. You might even find a new style that suits you better. Trauma has this nasty habit of making you feel like it's your fault. Like you should be ashamed of what happened to you. But blaming yourself for trauma is like blaming yourself for the weather. It's ridiculous and pointless. If you survive something tough, you're already a rock star. Like you're the hero in an action movie who walks away from the explosion in slow motion. Heroes don't do shame. They do victory laps. So the next time shame tries to creep in, just remind yourself you're the main character in this story. And main characters don't waste time on shame. They focus on the good stuff, like the epic comeback that's just around the corner. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Shame Shredders. Remember, shame is like bad Wi-Fi. It's annoying, it's persistent, but you don't have to let it ruin your day. If you liked what you heard, tune in next time as we continue to shred shame one root cause at a time. Stay awesome, stay shameless, and I'll catch you next time. Guilt Busters with Greg, the two stooges of guilt and why they're total nonsense. Hey, welcome to Guilt Busters with Greg, the show where we take that nagging little voice in your head, give it a wedgie, and send it on its way. I'm your host, Greg the Guilt Slayer, your personal guilt exterminator, here to help you stop apologizing to your subconscious mirror every morning. Today's episode is about the three stooges of guilt. The so-called root causes that keep us all up at night, wondering if we really needed that second slice of cake. Spoiler, you did. Let's get into it. 1. Unmet expectations. Now let's talk about unmet expectations. Yes, the guilt we feel when we don't measure up. You know, like when you promised yourself you go to the gym 5 times this week, but Netflix had a new releases section that wasn't going to watch itself. And now you're sitting there drenched in a cocktail of sweat and shame, wondering why you're not a ripped superhero by now. But let's break this down. Expectations are like those carnival games that are rigged from the start. You think you're going to win that giant stuffed bear, but you end up with a plastic fish that smells funny. We set these expectations without ever asking, hey, is this even realistic? Like, who actually enjoys going to the gym 5 days a week? Masochists and Instagram influencers, that's who. So, instead of guilt tripping over unmet expectations, let's set some realistic ones. Like, I'll go to the gym once and maybe I won't eat the entire pizza afterward. That's a win in my book. 2. Internalized societal or cultural norms. And now, let's tackle the granddaddy of them all. Internalized societal or cultural norms. These are the unwritten rules that make you feel guilty for, well, everything. Didn't get married by 30. Guilty. No kids yet. Guilty. Still renting an apartment instead of owning a house with a white picket fence. Guilty as charged. But hold on a minute. Who wrote these rules? Was there a secret society meeting where they decided, okay, by 25, you should have a career, by 30, a spouse, by 35, kids, and by 40, a midlife crisis involving a sports car? Because I didn't get the memo. Society's norms are like those pop-up ads online, intrusive, irrelevant, and just plain annoying. So why are we letting them dictate our lives as like following the rules of Monopoly in real life, ridiculous and guaranteed to make everyone involved angry? So the next time you feel guilty because you're not living by some arbitrary timeline, just remember, these norms were made up by people who probably didn't know what they were doing either. Live your life at your own pace, and if anyone gives you grief about it, tell them to go buy Boardwalk with their fake money. Conclusion, the past is a guilt trip. Cancel your ticket. All right, folks, here's the grand finale. The real culprit behind most of our guilt isn't just those arbitrary moral codes we've talked about. It's our ridiculous attachment to the past. The truth is, holding on to the past is like hoarding old VHS tapes. You can keep rewinding and watching those embarrassing scenes, but they're never going to change. And really, who even has a VHS player anymore? It's time to let go, people. Imagine if we treated the past like a bad movie we watched by accident. You wouldn't keep paying to see it, right? You'd move on and find something better, like literally anything else. So do the same with our past guilt. Cancel your subscription to Guiltflix and start binge watching New Beginnings instead. So the next time guilt tries to crash your party, just tell it, sorry, this party is for people who don't take themselves so seriously. Thanks for tuning in to Guilt Busters with Greg. Remember, life's too short to feel guilty for being awesome. Catch you next time. Laugh Off Grief, the ultimate roast of sorrow. Welcome, everyone, to Laugh Off Grief, the only show where we take sorrow by the hand, swing it around, and toss it out the window like a bad Tinder date. Tonight, we're going to utterly destroy grief, slice it up, serve it with a side of hilarious truth, and watch it cry for a change. Because, let's face it, grief is like the world's worst roommate. It never pays rent, always hogs the couch, and leaves you in a mess. Time to evict that sucker for good. 1. Grief is just a clingy ex. First things first, grief is basically an emotional hoarder. It clings to every old memory, like that ex who still texts you, "Happy birthday," 3 years after the breakup. Grief just can't let go. But why should we care? Let's be real. Hanging on to the past is like trying to use expired coupons at the grocery store. Useless and slightly embarrassing. Grief says, "But remember when?" And we say, "Remember when you didn't ruin my vibe?" Think about it. We're over here mourning the good old days, while the universe is probably up there saying, "That was so 3 seasons ago." Holding on to the past is like trying to watch Netflix on a dial-up connection, painful and completely unnecessary. Move on, grief. It's buffering our happiness, too. The absurdity of attachment. Now let's talk about attachment. Grief's BFF. We get attached to people, objects, and experiences like they're the last slice of pizza at a party, but here's the thing. Attachment is like duct taping yourself to a roller coaster. The highs are thrilling, but the lows will make you want to hurl. And for what? So we can hold on to something that's constantly changing. It's like trying to catch a cloud in a jar. It looks cool for a second, but then it's just empty air. And take objects, for example. We get all sentimental about stuff, but if your house was on fire, you'd grab your phone and your cat and the rest would be a smoky memory. That fancy vase from Aunt Marge, you'd trade it in a heartbeat for a cold drink and a fresh pair of underwear. 3. Grief, the invisible ropes. Grief ties people up with invisible ropes, like some kind of emotional Houdini. Yep, we're still talking about attachments. They're the root cause of grief. You know, the stuff we hang on to like life depends on it. That old sweater from college, a million photos in our phones, or the approval of people we barely even like. We treat these attachments like they're some kind of lifeline, but in reality, they're more like emotional baggage fees on a budget airline, completely unnecessary and just weighing people down. Picture this. You're lugging around a suitcase stuffed with all your attachments, old grudges, that job you hate, and maybe even that questionable hair phase from 2010. You're dragging it through life like you're in some sort of emotional airport, constantly tripping over the baggage and wondering why you're so exhausted. But here's the kicker. What if you just drop the suitcase, let it go, and watch it tumble away like an overstuffed piñata of unnecessary nonsense? Suddenly, you're not weighed down by the stuff anymore, and guess what? Life gets a whole lot lighter, like you just upgraded to first class on the Freedom flight. So why not ditch the baggage, stop worrying about losing things that don't even matter, and strut into life with nothing but a smile and a carefree attitude? Trust me, you won't miss what you've left behind, and the freedom feels way better than any attachment ever could. When you let go, you don't lose anything, you gain everything. Closing, the roast of grief. So here we are at the end of our show, and grief is standing in the corner like a party crasher who realizes they weren't actually invited. Here's the thing. Grief, you've been roasted, toasted, and ghosted. We don't need you bringing down the party anymore. You're like a flat soda. Once fizzy, now just a sad, sweet mess. Let's give a round of applause to everyone who's ready to laugh off grief for good. Remember, the past is done. The present is fleeting, and the future is a surprise party waiting to happen. Don't let grief steal the cake. Let's live free, laugh hard, and leave grief in the dust. And now it's time to kick back and enjoy a little musical treat. Each episode, I'll be sharing a song that captures the vibe and energy of our journey together. So turn up the volume and let this track take you to the next level.
Let your all. Celebrate, embrace your grace. Smile wide, light up the place. Radiate with every move. Feel the rhythm, find your groove. Lift it up, laugh it out. Celebrate, let your spirit shout. Wisdom strong, humor bold. Dance in the truth, let your story unfold. Lift it up, laugh it out. Celebrate, let your spirit shout. Wisdom strong, humor bold. Dance in the truth, let your story unfold. Rampant truth, stand so tall. Guilt and shame, they can't call. Rise and shine, feel the bliss. Every moment find your kiss. Laugh it out, let joy persist. With wisdom's touch, nothing's missed. Lift it up, laugh it out. Celebrate, let your spirit shout. Wisdom strong, humor bold. Dance in the truth, let your story unfold. Lift it, laugh it loud. Embrace your strength, stand proud. With wisdom, humor by your side. We're grooving through life, enjoy the ride. We have it all.
If you enjoyed what you heard, there's a whole world of music waiting for you on our Patreon page. These tracks are crafted to help solidify the mindset shifts we've been working on together, and your support goes a long way in helping us produce more episodes. So, come join the Easy Adept community and let's keep the good vibes rolling. And that's a wrap, folks. I hope you enjoyed this mind-shifting journey as much as I did. The more you reinforce positive mindsets and habits, the stronger they become. Like this episode, subscribe to my channel and dive into my other content to keep the momentum going. Together, we'll keep building, reinforcing, and perfecting the mindset that will take you to new heights. Stay committed, stay consistent, and I'll see you next time